Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're making cheesesteak tortellini pasta. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this. There's really not a lot going into it. You will need some tortellini cheese pasta that basically you can get out of the frozen food section. But look at it when you get it, because when I went to get mine, I literally saw the first bag that came up and it was like $6 for a bag of this stuff. And then I saw one tucked away in the corner at Walmart of all places, which was only $2 and something. And I was like, wow, that's a big difference, because you only need about 12 ounces of this. So I'm going for the cheap one because you know what? They taste exactly the same, which is kind of funny. So we're going to go ahead and put this in hot water, and we're going to cook this per instructions on the bag. They say if you boil this for about 4 minutes, it's done. I gave mine 5, just to make sure that it was totally cooked through. Stir it up a little, make sure it's not sticking to each other when it's in the hot water. And once you've had this in here for 4 to 5 minutes, whichever it's going to be, you're going to notice they start floating up a little bit. And when they're floating, that means they're done because they're already cooked through. So what we're going to do is remove this from the heat, set it to the side, drain it, get it out of our way. So we're going to move on to the next steps of making this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a medium onion, we're going to cut it into smaller pieces, which really there's no set size for this. I just slice mine kind of thinner for the fact that, you know, that's the way I want it in here. I don't really want huge pieces. One medium onion should do you. Just cut it up really fine, break it up before you stop, and then we're going to go over and use some mushrooms. Now you're using about 2 cups of mushrooms, so basically if you get one of those little blue boxes of them out of the refrigerator section, you're good to go, because these things really go a long way. 2 cups should do you fine in this. And then we're going to have a half a cup of sliced up green and red bell peppers. As you can see, mine are already sliced up because they came frozen, because it is way cheaper to buy them frozen. So I went ahead and put that onto the counter to show you what's going in, and these are our vegetables that are going into this. And then we're going to take up to a pound of beef, and we're going to cut it into slices. We don't want huge hunks of this. We want this to be kind of thinly sliced pieces of the beef going into it, because we want it to actually work with everything else, because you're already going to have hunks of the tortellini, you're going to have pieces of the mushroom, you're going to have your onions in this and all, and you really want the beef to be thinner, because we want to be able to get this on a fork with other things to eat at the same time, and huge hunks just won't cut it. So go ahead and slice it up as thin as you can. One tip on this: if it's still kind of slightly frozen, it'll slice better. I thawed mine out completely because I had this in the freezer first, brought it out, thawed it, and I probably should have cut it a lot sooner before it started to get to the point where it is now, because it would have cut a lot easier for me on thin strips. But I still did a good job with it, so it's perfectly good. Whatever it works, as long as it gets sliced, that's all we need. So we're going to go ahead and put that to the side, and in a skillet, we're using a large skillet here, we're going to put at least 2 tablespoons of olive oil into it, get this up to medium-high heat, and then we're going to bring in our peppers and onions, because we want to cook these for about 4 minutes before we add anything else to it. We don't want to put the mushrooms in yet, because if you do, they're going to cook too quickly. The onions need time to do their thing, the peppers also need their time, so we just want to basically get them in there, give them their 4 minutes, move them around, get them coated in oil, and keep them moving, because if something just sits in one place too long, it's going to start to scorch. It's going to go to a point where your edges are going to get a little fried, and you don't really want that. We're basically softening these to a point to where they're usable. We're not trying to like hard fry them. So go ahead and move them around, get them coated, and if any of your pieces of onion are stuck together, go ahead and break them up. We want to get them totally separated, not only for the fact that you don't want to eat them that way, but 2, you want them to cook through evenly. So big hunks of onion that are all stuck together aren't going to cook evenly. So go ahead and mix them up and get that done. And then once we get to the 4-minute marker, that's when we're going to add in our mushrooms. So just let this do its thing for the 4 minutes and get them completely cooked. And you'll notice that as you're doing this, that your onions are going to become more translucent. They're going to be a lot more flexible. Same thing with the peppers. They will actually be more bendy, more flexible, and more cooked. And that's what we're looking for before we do anything else to this. And then once it's getting to that point, we're going to put the mushrooms in, and we're going to cook them for about 3 minutes or so. And you're going to tell when your mushrooms are starting to cook because they're going to change color a little bit. They're going to be a little bit less white and more grayish or even beigeish looking. So mix them through this, get them coated with the oil and everything, and keep turning them because you want your mushrooms to cook on both sides. Mind you, they're not sliced thick, but we do want to make sure that they actually get a chance to cook on both sides before we do anything else with this. So like I said, at least about 3 minutes of this. And they're going to continue to cook. Everything is, because we're going to add our beef in a second. That's going to give it a minute for that to cook as well. So go ahead and add in the beef that we cut up a minute ago. Put it into the pan and kind of spread it out because we want to make sure that it's getting to the bottom, because we're going to try and cook this beef through at the same time everything else is cooking. So that means you're going to have to turn this quite often to make sure that it is done. So get all of that beef in there and let it just heat up and do what it's supposed to do, because we are on a medium high heat here, so it shouldn't take all that long for it to cook. And then once you get this in, we're adding a half a teaspoon of salt and a fourth of a teaspoon of pepper over top of everything, and mixing it up to make sure that all of that gets distributed. So keep going with this until we get to the point where it is really starting to turn the beef to the color that it looks like when it's done, which is definitely not pink. So let's keep this going. And after we get to a certain point of this, we're going to add some other ingredients to this, because we're going to need some Worcestershire, and then we're going to need a little bit of beef broth. And that's going to help give us kind of a base of a sauce in this that's going to be coating everything before we add anything else to it. So once you get to the point where your beef is looking a lot more like this, then we're going to go ahead and add in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And then after that, we're going to bring in 1 cup of beef broth. So stir it up a little bit, and then when you bring in your beef broth, pour it over top of this whole thing, and then stir it up some more, so that way we can get it all in there. Because what we're going to try and do is cook this for about 5 minutes to kind of reduce it down a little bit, but we want to keep it stirred up a little as we are cooking. And we're going to make sure that it heats down to about like medium or so at this point. There's no need for it being on high heat anymore, because at this point basically we've got what we got in here. Everything's cooked, the meat's cooked, the vegetables are cooked, everything is good. We're just basically going to reduce down on the beef broth a little bit to have it go through everything and cook into the meat and everything else. So that's going to take you, I would say, at least a good 5 minutes or so cook time. But we want to bring this up and let it boil a little bit, like over medium, so that way we are actually cooking it down. And then we are going to bring in our tortellini and put it on top of here. So get it in there, mix it in with everything else, and then once it's in, we're going to let this cook for at least another 4 minutes or so. But we didn't want that temperature on high anymore because the tortellini is already cooked. We don't really want to keep cooking on that and make it fall apart or do anything else. So once this is here like this, let it go for the time that it needs to go. And we're going to turn our attention to the fact that we're going to put some cheese on top of this in a minute. So I suggest getting a block of cheese. I'm using mozzarella, and I'm going to shred it until I have at least a cup. You can put more than that on here if you want to, but a cup is all you really need. And once you get this completely shredded down and everything is about a cup's worth, then we're going to take this to the skillet and put it over the complete top of everything that's cooking in there, because we want to make sure that everything in the skillet gets a good coating of cheese. And what you're going to do at this point is turn your temperature down to low, and we're going to let this cook for, just a few minutes, so that way this cheese will melt down, because that's the whole point of what we're doing right now, is melting this cheese. And once that's done, you are about ready to serve this, because once your cheese is melted, you're ready to go. And you can serve this with some bread or whatever, and it's such a great meal because this thing has such a great flavor to it, with all these different, like the tortellini, the peppers, the mushrooms, the beef. Everything is just working together to give you something with a lot of flavor in it. And this is what mine looked like when it was done. And this was amazing to eat. And I think you'll like this as much as I did. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.